I have trained warlords, creatures, and top-tier fighters across 11 systems, yet a human girl rendered me unconscious in 5 minutes. I need you to understand this clearly from the beginning. My name is Victor, Senior Combat Instructor at the Galactic Defense Academy, and I have encountered nearly everything this profession can offer. 47 years, 47 rotations, spent teaching the most capable, the most promising, and occasionally the dangerously careless how to survive combat. I have trained Krellian shock troops capable of striking through titanium armor. I have shaped Zenthari infiltrators who moved with the quiet precision of shadows. I have even, an experience that still troubles me, managed to teach a Blobarian how to carry a plasma rifle without absorbing it into their gelatinous form. The point is simple, I know my field. The Galactic Defense Academy is not a casual training facility where anyone with 3 limbs and ambition can enroll. No. This institution has produced 73% of the Confederation's decorated combat officers. We operate by standards. We follow protocols. We maintain a reputation that reaches across 12 star systems and causes recruitment officers to celebrate when our graduates appear. And as for me, I am responsible for establishing many of those standards. My exoskeleton, an exceptional product of Draxon Prime evolution, holds exactly 273 embedded metals. Each one marks a campaign, a battle, a moment when I faced death in its unfamiliar, multidimensional form and chose to continue. My forearms aren't just for show, they're finely tuned tools, honed over decades of combat. My compound eyes can track 17 targets at once. My reflexes move at speeds that would make most species think time itself had paused. So when the latest batch of recruits filed into my combat theory classroom on the first day of 3rd rotation, I did what I always do. I assessed them with the cold, precise efficiency of someone who has forgotten more about warfare than most species will ever learn. 17 fresh faces, or face equivalents. The Methrin in the back didn't really have a face, just a cluster of sensory nodes pulsing with bioluminescence, but you get the idea. I saw the usual types, 2 Krellians already flexing their absurd muscles as if anyone cared, a Zenthari trying to look mysterious by lurking in the shadows, mostly just making attendance a pain, free voxel from merchant families, likely here because their relatives paid for it, and a handful of others, all different species and skill levels, about to discover that combat theory isn't nearly as glamorous as they imagined. And then there was the human. She claimed the middle row, boots propped on the desk as if she owned the place, wearing that ridiculous Earth military jacket with unfamiliar patches. Her hair, far too long for any practical military standard, was tied back in what humans call a ponytail. She chewed something constantly, a repetitive motion her species finds calming, though everyone else reads it as low-level aggression. Maya Torres. Lieutenant, Earth Defense Forces, transfer student from their Sol System Military Academy. I had studied her file. Humans had only joined the Confederation 8 months ago. Their planet, Earth, was classified as a Class 12 death world, a brutal sphere where everything tried to kill everything else. Yet somehow, these strange primates had clawed their way to the top of the food chain through sheer stubborn refusal to die properly. The file claimed she had combat experience. It claimed she had commendations. It said all the usual things files say about students whose governments want them to seem impressive. I was not impressed. Mayor Torres looked up as I began the lesson, and I swear on every ancestor's kin, she had the audacity to smile at me. Not a respectful smile. Not a nervous one. No, this was the kind of smile that said she already knew everything I was about to teach. How I despised that smile. Welcome to Advanced Combat Theory. My voice carried the weight of authority earned from nearly 5 decades of breaking cocky recruits into functional soldiers. I am Senior Instructor. You will address me as Sir. You will follow protocols. You will learn, or you will wash out. Those are your options. The Krellians straightened in their seats. The Zenthar stopped trying to appear enigmatic. The voxel actually started taking notes. The human? She kept chewing whatever she had in her mouth, that same infuriating smile tugging at her lips. I moved into my standard opening lecture, combat efficiency, threat assessment, the cold mathematics of survival. My forearms traced holographic displays of battle formations, tactical advantages, and the hard statistics of warfare. This was when most recruits realized they were out of their depth. Maya Torres yawned. Actually yawned. The Methrin next to her, a cautious fellow named Prilik, shifted his entire bulk away, as if her casual disrespect were contagious. The 2 Krellians exchanged glances that clearly said, "Is she serious right now?" Even the Zeni looked shocked, and her species literally makes a living out of assassination. I paused mid-sentence. "Lieutenant Torres, am I boring you?" At least she had the decency to remove her boots from the desk. "No, sir, just tired. Long shuttle ride from Earth." How unfortunate, I said, letting every syllable drip with sarcasm. Perhaps you'd rather return to your death world and nap while the rest of us discuss actual military theory. That got a reaction from the class. A few nervous laughs. The Krellians grinned, clearly enjoying someone else being on the receiving end of my words. Maya, however, simply shrugged. I am fine, sir. Please continue. Oh, I will continue, I replied. I pulled up the module I had specifically saved for moments like this, about death world species and their unfortunate tendency toward self-delusion. Class, let's examine a fascinating phenomenon in xenobiology. Species from high-gravity, high-danger worlds often develop what we call survival bias. They mistakenly believe that because their planet tried to kill them daily, they are inherently superior to species that evolved with intelligence and efficiency. I looked directly at Maya. She met my gaze, that infuriating smile still in place. These species, I continued, warming to my topic, assume that pain tolerance equals combat skill. They believe sheer endurance compensates for tactical inferiority. They think that surviving harsh planetary conditions automatically makes them, and I quote from human military records here, special. The word special came out dripping with contempt. A few students glanced at Maya, waiting to see her reaction. The Murian had moved so far away from her that he was practically hovering over the Zenthari, who looked ready to strike him out of principle. Maya raised her hand. Yes, Lieutenant Torres? I said, already regretting acknowledging her. Just a question, sir. Have you ever fought a death world species in actual combat? Outside simulations? The classroom went completely silent. You could hear Azentha breathe, and they barely breathe at all. I felt my exoskeleton bristle. I have fought in 47 campaigns across 11 systems. Lieutenant, I have faced every major species in the Confederation in real combat scenarios. My experience is beyond question. Right, she said, nodding as if she were seriously evaluating my credentials. But that's not really my question, sir. Have you ever fought a human specifically? I have not had that displeasure, I replied, coldly. Your species joined the Confederation 8 months ago. Before that, you were busy hitting each other with sticks on your nightmare planet. She actually laughed. Fair enough, sir, she said, still smiling. Just checking. I decided then and there that before this rotation ended, I would show Maya Torres exactly where she stood in the galactic hierarchy of combat effectiveness. Somewhere very, very low. The lecture went on for another 20 minutes. I covered the fundamental principles of combat, tested and proven across countless battlefields, proper stance, energy conservation, tactical positioning, the essential skills that distinguish trained soldiers from enthusiastic corpses. Maya Torres took exactly 0 notes. When I finally opened the floor for questions, her hand shot up immediately. Yes, Lieutenant, I said, already drained by her presence. Sir, she said, rising smoothly, a movement that hinted at reasonable physical fitness for a human, I learn better by doing than by listening. Could we perhaps do a practical demonstration? Maybe a sparring session to see these principles in action? The classroom buzzed. The Krellians looked excited. The Voxel appeared terrified. Prillik, the Methrin, emitted the sound his species makes when they anticipate someone's imminent death. I felt a grin spread across my mandibles. Perfect. This was exactly the kind of teaching moment that only appeared a few times each rotation. Every year, there was always one student convinced they were exceptional, someone in need of a practical lesson in humility. Normally, my teaching assistant, Kil Rath, would handle these situations. But this time, I wanted to do it myself. A hands-on demonstration, I repeated slowly, savoring the words. You want me, a decorated combat veteran with 47 years of experience, to spar with you, a lieutenant who has been in space for, what, 3 weeks? 4 weeks, sir, she corrected. Yes, 4 weeks. But yes, that is exactly what I am requesting. She phrased it carefully, clearly aware of the implications. She was challenging my authority while leaving me a perfect excuse to decline. Declining, however, would make me seem afraid, and I was many things, but afraid of a human who probably weighed 60 kilos soaking wet was not one of them. Protocols absolutely allow it, I said, spreading my forearms wide. In fact, they encourage practical demonstrations when students need clarity. Class, we are moving to Combat Ring 3, I announced. You are about to witness a highly educational example of why theory outweighs bravado. The students scrambled to gather their equipment. The Krellians were already placing bets, credit chips moving from claw to claw. Ather seemed genuinely interested for the first time all day. Even the Voxel, despite their obvious nerves, leaned forward with curiosity, assuming the fight would be short. Combat Ring 3 was standard Academy issue, 40 meters in diameter, reinforced energy barriers capable of containing anything short of a plasma detonation, shock-absorbent flooring, and fully integrated medical monitoring in the walls. Safety protocols were rigorous, because combat training at this level could quickly become dangerous. Kilra, my teaching assistant, met us at the ring. His environmental suit hissed slightly as he adjusted, the methane atmosphere inside keeping him comfortable. "Sir," he said through his translator, "is this wise? The human is new. What if she gets hurt? Then she will learn a valuable lesson about overconfidence," I replied, stepping into the ring. "Set the safeties to training level 4. No permanent damage, but enough to make the lesson clear." Maya was already stretching across the ring, rolling her shoulders and neck casually, a posture that suggested experience. She had removed her jacket, revealing a simple black training shirt. Her arms showed surprising muscle definition for her size, still modest by galactic standards, but not negligible. The other students gathered around the ring's edge, faces showing a mix of anticipation and morbid curiosity. The Krellians were clearly amused. Pulik had his sensory nodes covered, as if he could not bring himself to watch. I assumed my combat stance, placing all 4 arms into the standard Draxan defensive formation. 47 years of training and muscle memory settled in smoothly, familiar and reliable. Maya shifted lightly on her feet, shook out her hands, and raised her fists in a basic earth fighting posture. "Ready when you are, sir," she said, the smile still fixed on her face. Killer initiated the combat timer. "Sparring match begins in 3, 2, 1. Engage." I intended to finish the match quickly and with minimal discomfort. That assumption became my first error. I opened with a textbook sequence. My left primary arm feinted high, the right primary swept low, and my secondary arms prepared for counter-grappling. It was a standard opening, one I had used successfully against opponents far larger and, on paper, far more capable than Maya. She moved incorrectly, at least according to established doctrine. Every recognized combat manual states that when facing a 4-armed opponent executing a high-low split attack, there are 2 correct responses: withdraw to reassess, or commit to blocking the more dangerous strike. Those have always been the accepted options. Maya, however, did not follow them. She dropped into a deep crouch, her rear knee nearly touching the floor, allowing my high feint to pass entirely over her head. She then pivoted on her front foot and slid past my low sweep with a margin of no more than 2 centimeters. Before I could reposition, she was inside my guard, an outcome that should not have occurred, and her fist drove toward my thorax. I intercepted the strike easily with my right secondary arm. Experience alone ensured that. Still, the impact caught my attention. It was not painful, the training safeguards prevented that, but the force was notable. It was controlled, deliberate power, indicating real instruction rather than uncontrolled aggression. "Interesting," I said, re-establishing my stance. "You have some ability. Let us see how you manage a proper attack." I increased my speed to the upper limits of my species' capability. My arms moved in rapid, precise patterns, each strike carefully measured to probe her defenses without causing harm. This was, after all, an instructional exercise, not an attempt to injure a confident human participant. Yet she continued to respond in ways that defied expectation. Every rule of efficient combat that I understood, and I understood them thoroughly, suggested she should have been overwhelmed. A 4-arm advantage against a 2-arm opponent is statistically decisive. By any calculation, resistance should have collapsed quickly. She should have been retreating, blocking without coordination, searching for a chance to yield. Instead, she flowed through my attacks with consistent control. Not like water, that analogy was insufficient. Her movement resembled that of a species shaped by constant threat, one whose survival depended on the understanding that a single clean hit could be fatal. Her head moved in unpredictable patterns, bobbing and weaving with an almost impossible fluidity. Her torso twisted at angles that seemed uncomfortable, even unnatural. She ducked under strikes that should have landed, slipped past grapples that should have caught her. And she was laughing, genuinely enjoying it. "You telegraph your combination, sir," she said between breaths, her voice calm and unstrained. "Always lead with the left when going for a grapple." The audacity of this human giving me tactical advice while I was clearly in control of the fight would have been amusing if it weren't so infuriating. I shifted my approach, moving from testing strikes to a structured combat sequence. I deployed the Draxan Cascade, a 7-strike combination that had secured me 3 inter-size tournament victories. Fast, precise, and efficient, it had never failed to put an opponent on the defensive. Maya blocked the first strike with her forearm, absorbed the second with her shoulder, contorted under the third, and then did something that momentarily froze my mind. She stepped into the 4th strike rather than away from it, taking the impact on her upper arm while closing the distance between us. Suddenly, her elbow shot upward toward my mandible with alarming speed. I jerked my head back on instinct. The strike missed by a hair, but I felt the rush of air, the closeness of it. The students around the ring had gone silent. "What are you doing?" I demanded, genuinely baffled. "You're taking hits you could easily avoid. That's tactically absurd." She grinned, and there was something in that expression that made my exoskeleton tingle with an unfamiliar emotion, one I hadn't felt in a long time. "Trading damage for position, sir, you can absorb more hits than I can." "True," I answered, "but you are not accustomed to opponents who do not mind being struck." "That is because it is foolish," I added, moving in a circle and reassessing the situation. "Pain is meant to warn us to avoid harm." "Pain is simply data," she replied calmly, circling with me, "and I have a high tolerance for data." She launched her attack then, and it looked nothing like the combat techniques recorded in the galactic database. Her style was forceful, erratic, and entirely unpredictable. Her punches came from unusual angles. She used her knees, elbows, and even her head. At one particularly concerning moment, it was clear she fought as someone trained in a place with no rules, no procedures, and no safe limits. She fought like someone from a death world. I was still ahead. My longer reach and extra limbs gave me a clear advantage. I was landing more hits, and the combat computer confirmed it as my score continued to rise. Yet, in the back of my thoughts, an unwelcome question surfaced. If I was winning, why did it feel as though I was losing control? The fight had lasted 3 minutes and 40 seconds when Maya stopped smiling. I noticed instantly because I had been monitoring every detail of her performance, noting her errors, her inefficiencies, and gathering proof I planned to use later to explain why Deathworld confidence did not equal real combat ability. Her expression shifted from playful to something else, focused and intent. My compound eyes widened slightly. I had seen that look before, on soldiers who had decided that survival was no longer optional. "All right," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Let us do this properly." Before I could fully process her words, everything changed. Not her body, but the way she moved. The light footwork ended. The probing strikes ended. What replaced them was something my 47 years of experience struggled to define. She advanced like a living projectile. I countered with a combination that had completely stopped a Krellian charge during the last rotation. She did not retreat. She pushed through it, absorbing blows to her arms, shoulders, and ribs, and continued forward. Impact feedback pulsed through my limbs. I knew my strikes were effective, yet she did not slow. "Stop taking unnecessary damage." I raised my voice because the situation was unreasonable. It went against every standard of efficient combat. Her answer was to slip beneath my main arms and drive her fist into my thorax plate with enough force to trigger a warning from the training safeties. I stumbled backward, honestly caught off guard. It hurt, not severely. The safeties prevented that. Still, I felt the impact through my exoskeleton armor. "How are you producing that level of force?" I asked. "Your mass, your leverage, this should not be possible. The physics do not support it." "This rotation comes from the hips, sir," she replied, continuing to advance. "Ground force transfer. Kinetic chains. On Earth, we developed several martial arts that all reached the same conclusion: use the entire body, not only the arm." She showed this by pivoting on her rear foot and throwing another punch that I barely stopped with 2 arms. The collision sent vibrations through my secondary skeletal frame and across the ring. No one was laughing anymore. The Krellian stopped wagering. Prillik uncovered his sensory nodes to observe. Even Kyth moved closer to the barrier, his translator capturing his stunned breathing. I switched to the Draxon Spiral, a defensive technique that formed a rotating shield with all 4 arms, designed to be impenetrable without severe damage from counterattacks. Maya examined it for no more than 2 seconds, then stepped inside regardless. She absorbed a strike to her forearm that should have numbed it completely. She took a blow to the ribs that should have emptied her lungs. A glancing hit to her temple should have left her disoriented. Instead, she closed the distance again. Her elbow struck my joint housing. Her knee drove toward my lower thorax. Her other hand seized one of my secondary arms and applied a joint lock I was not aware humans possessed. I threw her aside using superior mass and strength. She hit the mat, rolled, and returned to her feet in under a second. Her breathing had intensified. I could see the effects accumulating. Discoloration was already forming where my strikes landed. By standard combat evaluation, she should have been slowing. Pain should have been reducing her effectiveness. Accumulated damage should have lowered her performance. Instead, she accelerated. "Your species is malfunctioning," I said, reverting to formal defensive postures. "You should be weakening." "Adrenaline is a powerful substance, sir," she replied. I did not know what adrenaline was, but I was starting to conclude it was unfair. I chose to end the engagement. No more instruction. No more restraint to prevent injury. I would act at full speed and finish this with the precise efficiency that had earned me 73 medals. I attacked with everything available to me. Maya Torres met me head-on. What followed was disorder. For arms against two should not have been a contest. Mathematics supported that conclusion. Physics supported it. Every combat instructor in the galaxy agreed. She fought as if mathematics were optional and physics applied elsewhere. She avoided a strike by millimeters and countered immediately. I blocked and followed with 3 more. She absorbed 1, evaded 2, and drove her fist into the same thorax plate again. The training safeties screamed once more. I attempted a grapple. She escaped with flexibility that was unsettling, and suddenly her leg swept mine. I lost balance. Senior combat instructor Victor, veteran of 47 campaigns, lost balance. The students inhaled sharply. That was when Maya Torres set her rear foot, rotated her entire body like a compressed spring releasing, and delivered a straight right hand backed by her full body mass, complete leg drive, and the entirety of her Deathworld evolution. It struck my mandible. The training safeties failed. Not entirely. They prevented lethal damage and blocked permanent injury, but they were designed for standard species, creatures with normal pain thresholds, delivering typical punches with ordinary force. This was not standard. The impact jerked my head violently to the side. I felt a snap in my exoskeletal plating. My vision doubled, then tripled. My legs forgot how to support me. The combat ring's floor surged toward me, and in a detached, surreal moment I thought floors shouldn't move like that. I hit the mat. I did not get up. I woke in Medical Bay 7 with a headache that felt like a plasma grenade had detonated inside my skull, and with the clear sensation that my entire understanding of the universe had been insulted. The medical technician, a Valoran named Shurish, gently informed me I had a fractured mandible plate, 2 cracked ribs in my secondary skeletal structure, and what humans called a concussion. Shurish seemed uneasy delivering the news, probably because instructors were not supposed to end up in medical bays after sparring with students. An hour later, Pilarath arrived, his environmental suit hissing softly. "Sir," he said cautiously, "the Academy Director wants to review the combat footage. Also," he added, "Lieutenant Torres asked if you were okay." She seemed genuinely concerned. "How considerate of her," I muttered, each word sending fresh spikes of pain through my healing mandible. "Show me the footage." We watched the fight on the medical bay's holo display. Kilrath stood silently beside me as the 5-minute, 12-second recording played. Watching it externally was different than experiencing it. I now noticed what I had missed in the moment. Maya had held back for the first 3.5 minutes, testing me, learning my patterns. When she shifted, it was neither desperation nor luck, it was tactical assessment followed by precise, devastating execution. "Pause there," I said, pointing to the moment she passed through my Draxon cascade. "Run the biometric data." The display revealed her vital signs during that exchange: heart rate elevated but controlled, oxygen consumption high but sustainable, and pain receptor feedback showing that she felt every hit she took. She simply did not care. "This is not normal," Killaroth whispered. "Sir, her species," he explained, "evolved on a planet where their own immune systems attack them regularly, where their star bathed them in radiation, and the atmosphere's oxygen levels would be toxic to most species. They practice persistence hunting, chasing prey to exhaustion. They healed from injuries that would be fatal to others. They adapted to every extreme their world could throw at them." "I know what death worlds are," I said quietly. "With respect, sir, I don't think you did. I don't think any of us did. We read about it in files, saw the statistics, but never truly grasped what it meant." Killith gestured toward the frozen image of Maya's final punch. "It means they don't stop. It means pain is just data. It means they fight as if the universe itself is out to kill them, because on their planet, it was." The next day, the Academy Director, Commander Hess Elon, visited. Her crystalline form caught the medical bay lights, scattering them into a prism of colors as she stood beside my bed. "Instructor Vector," she said, her voice melodic, "we are implementing new protocols for human students. They will now be classified as specialist combatants, and their training will be adapted accordingly." "Good," I managed to say. She continued, and I could swear there was a hint of amusement in her tone. "Lieutenant Torres has requested you as her primary instructor for advanced combat courses." She added, quoting, "You are the first teacher who actually challenged her." I closed my eyes. Somewhere in the academy, a human was probably smiling that infuriating smile. And all my 47 years of experience, which should have counted for something, seemed meaningless when faced with a species that evolved to fight against gravity, radiation, bacteria, predators, and each other, all at the same time. I was not special. She what?